mile-per-hour winds definitely a possibility as this comes in fast, moving quickly off to the east, 45 to 55 miles per hour.
Yep.
Here's Fragrant, and there's Peonia. So this is just a few miles away. As it moves so quickly, you might think, oh, we've got time. But in a couple, and essentially no wind, all of a sudden the possibility that those winds are howling. And it looks like this is still showing up. It hasn't weakened. If anything, it's probably increased a little bit of that velocity, the wind velocity inside this tornado-warned storm, as it definitely takes that path towards Millerstown. I want to say that again. For all of these cities out here in the central and far eastern part of that tornado warning that banks up to about Interstate 65, you might think you have all the time in the world, but it's moving quickly. Those very strong winds aloft are helping guide this from west to east. And actually, up to this point, those very strong winds aloft were actually ripping the tops off thunderstorms. That's why we haven't had any other severe weather in the overnight. We didn't have enough warmth and juice to get the storms to build and burst through those strong winds aloft. But now that we're getting these to go up way down south, where we've been in the mid-60s for a while, it's more of like a spring-like day, a spring-like morning. So you can get that warm air, which is rising quickly, to actually interact with those strong winds. And now this is the show. This is the one. This is the nastiest one that we have, Grayson County heading into Hart County, and this will be right along I-65, at least the wind maker within the next 30 to 40 minutes. It's pouring down rain on I-65 right now in between E-Town and then making the turn over towards Bowling Green. This is a terrible place if you have to travel, but it's going to get a lot worse in around 25 to 35 minutes when the tornado warned storm right there takes a path right to that location. And then crossing east of I-65, you're looking at Green Taylor and then down into Adair County. And there's definitely some larger cities down that way as this line moves to the east but also sinks to the southeast. That's why we know those locations are going to get involved.
Jude, we just got a new severe thunderstorm warning as well, and I do want to correct myself from earlier. I said that LaRue County was included in this tornado warning. It is not. It's right up on the edge, the western edge of LaRue County, there along I-65. The main area of rotation looks like it has broadened some north of Annetta. That's going to be right along State Road 259, heading across Bloomington Road now. Again, that's just north of Annetta. So it's not as tight as it was earlier. However, again, if we go back to our velocity couplet, you still see a little bit of that red and that green next to each other. And with this new severe thunderstorm warning, the way that they've drawn it out, there's an area heading toward Welch's Creek. And I'm thinking that that's another spot of some rotation that they're keeping an eye on. They haven't given a tornado warning on this new portion of the line a little bit further south, but they have put tornado possible on it, and that's what I anticipated by the way that they had drawn this new one out. So again, Welch's Creek, Bancock, Dexterville, that's where another area of rotation is at this point.
That is exactly how the storm began for Grayson County,
like
almost identical.
With the latest scan, it does look like we are starting to see some tightening as it's heading toward 340 there, just to the southwest of Grayson County. So another spot that we're keeping a very close eye on for some potential rotation. I may go up there for just a moment and point that out to folks in case you are missing it. So there are two areas of rotation that we're keeping an eye on here. One, of course, being in Grayson County. Now, that has weakened some, and we're just now starting to get a couple more scans in here with the one that's down further to the south and west. This right here, you see some dark greens as well as very bright blues. So that's quite a bit of rotation that's starting to form. Looks very similar to the one that just went tornado warned that's moving through Grayson County. That's well to the south of Litchfield. And folks that are in Litchfield, you're hearing the warnings this morning, the sirens going off. You're not in danger of the portion of the storm that's rotating up here. It is well to your south and east. Again, that's when we're talking downtown Litchfield, but you may, if you're in Grayson Springs toward Johnson Crossroads, Higdon, Fragrant, that's an area where you need to be in your safe place at this point. That's why this storm is tornado warned for another 25 minutes or so until 6 o'clock this morning for those that are in the eastern time zone, of course, central time for those that are west of 65 down there. So until 5 a.m. this morning, Fragrant toward Royal, Spike. Definitely get into your safe place because we have enough rotation here and it's still strong enough. The inflow is a lot stronger than the outflow, but That's where we're watching for the rotation moving through Grayson County, getting ready to go into Hart and far southern Hardin County as well here, Jude.
Matthew, we have a tornado vortex signature that's popped up on this. When you go over there, you'll be able to see it. I want to do the analyzer radar as well. We mentioned that town of Peonia. That looks like the tornado if it's on the ground. It is moving through that city right now. It's 5:36 with a potential tornado on the ground as this is cycled back up. We mentioned that a little while ago. While these storms show the rotation, starts to weaken a little bit because this is not April and May standards. It is going to be really hard to get rotating winds and a tornado on the ground to just stay there and bulldoze its way. So you have strong rotation, it leaves for a little while, and then it starts to pick up more of that spring-like air, and it comes back, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Matthew, let's do some radar updates. As you can take this, we'll do some storm tracking.
Okay.
Let me show you the split screen. Let's indicate here, Higdon, you're going to be in that rotation almost instantly in the next minute or two with the possibility of a tornado working in. Grayson Springs, so this is Fragrant. Again, there it is, the green and blue versus red. That is where the tornado would be. I want to mention a couple locations. Rough River Lake area, so Grayson Springs Road, Rock Creek over towards Snap. That's along Highway 1214. There's not a lot of population here. Again, farmland, and that's about it. But every now and then you might see a small community like right around Higdon. Whether you have 3 people that live there or 5 million, it's all important. Every single person is very important. So this is moving west to east at around 50 miles per hour as we see this eventually in between Rock Creek and Snap. And I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that this is going to end up over towards Millerstown, over towards, let's see, there's a landmark Meredith Septic Tank Service is going to be over there in between Wheeler's Mill and Broad Ford. So all of these locations.
I'm going to pull up correlation coefficient really quick. I know that we have the tornado signature there on our GR analyst. I'm not quite seeing it just yet. Let me take it back
maybe a little bit, but certainly nothing that says there's a tornado on the ground. We're also looking at about 3,000 feet up.
This is very true.
In the air. So at Fort Knox, where that radar beam shot out, by the time it gets down here with the curvature of the earth, that radar beam's a few thousand feet off the ground, where the winds could definitely be spinning around 90 miles per hour, and there can be all sorts of wild rotation. But it's really difficult. Even if the prime conditions are available, it's difficult sometimes to get that down to the surface. But this could be a situation where for 10 to 15 seconds, tornadic winds hit the surface. In between radar scans, it leaves a little bit. So this is probably going to be one of those environments that is conducive for brief tornadoes, brief spin-ups. That's what we mentioned a couple times yesterday. By far, the main threat is going to be some wind, some damaging straight line wind, just because the jet stream level winds are 70 to 90 miles per hour, a few thousand feet off the ground. So Millerstown, this is moving towards you. Spike, Millerstown, it's going to work along 224 off to the east. Bonneville, you're in the path of this. Matthew, let's keep checking out some radar vantage points, put some storm trackers on there. And if we can go to the analyzer in a little bit, maybe do a split screen and just work this around for people so everyone knows what in the world is happening here on this Thursday morning. When you get 60s and 70s in February, it might feel nice and it melts the snow and ice away, but it's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have that kind of warmth, and it leads to volatility. February going into March is notorious for an early spring season, tornado season, severe weather season around here quite often, and that's exactly what we're looking at right there. Matthew just put the heart of the storm track right in the midst of that rotation, so we're going to take it off to the east, and there's I-65 over towards Upton and Lone Star, and there's a good chance we're going to probably have to extend this warning even past this, which is running for another 19 and a half minutes. So we have Upton, we have Hammondville, we have Magnolia and Buffalo. The ETA's 11, 15, 17, and 19 minutes. ETA is just that, estimated time of arrival. It's not a guarantee, it's not gospel, but it certainly gives you a game plan on what to do. And then when you start to get in a little bit of a panic mode, you're waking up, sound asleep, it's like, what do we do? What do we do? That 10, 15 minutes comes on a lot quicker than you imagine. So we've seen that little curl, there's that little notch where that south wind is bumping in there, and then on the backside things are flowing, and then as you show the radar velocity, how the raindrops are moving inside that storm, that's exactly where it links up to that rotation. You have something to pass along, Matthew?
I just wanted to name out some roads here really quick. I know Grayson Springs Road is where this has been moving over here. Peonia Road, it moved over as well. And at this point, and I'm going to zoom back in on a couple of these smaller streets that it's moved over. Alfie Powell Road for folks that live there. Grindstone Road. Again, this is all in far eastern Grayson County. We want you guys to have that heads up. We're trying to name off some of the smaller roads in this area. Lone Oak Road. If you're hearing your road be called, it's a good idea to be in your safe place. Again, overall, the rotation is broad. Wax Road, we haven't seen any correlation coefficient values drop. So I don't think that I've got enough evidence to say that there's for sure one on the ground right now, Jude. And the National Weather Service hasn't said that either at this point. Let's see, another road. Yeah, Grindstone Road that we've gone over here, then Wax Road. Those are the two spots that it's going to be heading over. Just east of Wax Road would be River Road. Then you go over into Hart County. You're talking Port Wooden Road, and you're also talking Raider Hollow Road. And those are another couple of roads that within the next 10 minutes or so that the main area of circulation is going to be over. So that's between Millerstown and I-65, those last couple of roads that I was naming off there, Jude.
So in between Rock Creek, Millerstown, and this is going to move along Millerstown Road, Little Flock Church on 224. In the next 2 minutes, potential tornadoes on top of you. And I know we've taken over the news, and we apologize for that. We'll get through this in a little bit, but Lindsay and Candace, they're working crazy too. You know, they're over there monitoring all the chats and everything online. We'll check in with them here in a second to see if they're finding out any information to pass along of damage, any possible tornado, because up to this point, we have not heard of any tornado that's touched down or any trees knocked over. But when you see the radar signatures, as this began all around 5 o'clock, I would bet the ranch there's at least going to be some spots where there were some winds 50 to 60 miles per hour embedded in this heavy rain. That's why we started this entire thing off with the severe thunderstorm warning, and then we went to that tornado warning. Doesn't have the same kind of signature. Let's do a regroup here, Matthew.
Yeah.
Let's take everything off. Let's give us a wide view. You know, we have to get the kids ready for school. I want to show you where it's storming elsewhere as we extend up towards Bardstown, which has just been getting crushed with rain and lightning. Louisville Metro, we have pushed it all south.
Yes, the threat is over for the Metro.
So the roads are wet around Louisville, but we don't have any more lightning that we did when we were trying to sleep last night. We don't have as much widespread rain. We're going to have a slow go of it for Metro Louisville just because there's some water issues out there. Picked up an inch, inch and a half of rain in many areas. This is a little sliver, a narrow line where you have blinding rain. Bardstown will be out of that in 15 minutes. This is going to be a Washington County, Marion County, Greene, Taylor, Adair County thing, as we also have more instability from Lebanon down towards Campbellsville and then take it over towards Lebanon Junction. So this is where we have some prime real estate to potentially produce more severe weather, at least a few isolated severe thunderstorms or a couple more tornado warnings. Matthew, you pinpointed some rotation that came out of far southwestern sections of Grayson County, just to the west there, that prompted that severe thunderstorm warning. Let's go in and look and see if you're finding any rotation left in that right now, which would be potentially here.
Yes, absolutely. So there's still some rotation in there. It's not as strong. So there is a difference between these two storms. The one to the north, it definitely has more rotation. So In this area right here, you've got green and blue, and you've got red. This is where our rotation is, just to the west of Millerstown, and it's heading into Millerstown any moment now. So if you live in Millerstown, right there on the Hardin, Grayson, Hart County line, make sure that you're in your safe place, because this tornado warning is for you now. Yes, you've been inside of the tornado warning for a while. Yes, it was a good idea to be in or near your safe place, but at this point, the best thing you can do is absolutely be in your safe place because of that rotation. Now we go down further south and west, just to the southeast of Ready along 185. This is another area of rotation that's a little bit weaker, but it is starting to tighten some as it crosses over 185. You don't see the red in there, but you do see the faded darker green and the very bright blue green. So again, that's southeast of Ready, north of Nash, heading south of Shrewsbury towards Sadler, north of South there along 187. That's going to be another area to watch for a potential tornado warning to come out here. The severe thunderstorm warning does have potential tornado or possible tornado tag on it there. Jude.
Let's do a split screen. So on this side, we're looking at wind. Are they spinning? What's going on? Do we have strong winds? And wherever you see some blue and green, that's all you need to look for, because elsewhere, if there's nothing there, you're golden. This right here tells us there's strong winds, potentially some rotating winds. We don't have a tornado warning. That's what Matthew was just mentioning in far southern Grayson County. But regardless, tornado or no tornado, winds it could be 60 to 70 miles per hour. We look at the tornado warning, still some of that rotation now crossing over towards Hart County, far southern Hardin County. On the Hardin-Hart County line, just moments away from interacting with I-65, we have a residual tornadic vortex signature, now just more of a meso look. It's weakened somewhat, but anytime you see that green circle, I mean, you can see how it's going like that. That just makes it easier to understand that that's the spot where there's rotating winds. So this is moving towards Upton and Bonneville, right on the county line, right in the middle of that tornado warning. Now on this side, we're looking at rain. We're looking at the reflectivity. The radar picks up the raindrops coming down, and these are vicious downpours, and there's also quite a bit of lightning mixed in here. Matthew, you mentioned Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Wanted to throw out a couple other locations. So from Shrewsbury over towards Decker Boys Raceway, and then once again towards Annetta. We've mentioned Annetta a couple times, where we have that severe thunderstorm warning coming out of this area. Potentially some of those damaging winds that'll move back to the east. And again, Decker Boys Raceway, New Harmony Church, Sadler Church, James Farm, and then right into Shrewsbury. We have rain and we have wind going on.
Yeah, you see the, Jude, you see the INROT that we use, the rotation detector there on the right-hand side of the screen that you were mentioning. And you go south and east of Caneyville, that's actually higher values than what we have coming out of our tornado warning there off to the east and northwest of Bonneville now. I do think that the main area of rotation is going to end up between Upton and Bonneville. So at this point, you know, the rotation has weakened some. It is undoubtedly still there. And again, like you mentioned earlier, you are looking very high in the atmosphere. What we would like to see is something a little bit lower, but we don't have any radars that are close enough to give us a view of something that's only a few hundred feet off the ground. We're looking thousands of feet up in the air. So I'm going to go over to base reflectivity here, or base velocity, I should say. And in the far northwestern corner, you see that, Jude? Far northwestern corner of Hart County is where we're looking at the rotation. And with the latest scan that just came in 1 second ago, we go back one, you see some very bright blues, very close to the red. You go one more scan forward. This is our latest scan as it's heading eastward, and it has died down a little bit here. So again, we're not saying all bets are off, but this is going to end up between Upton and Bonneville along I-65 within the next 5 minutes or so, I would say.
If you can go over to the other radar, and I would appreciate if you could do a toggle as we do a comparison from what we have right now with the severe thunderstorm warning, possible rotation in there. We're going to rewind back, and this prompted the severe thunderstorm warning heading into southern Grayson County.
Yes.
Now we track that to the east. It's there, never really intensifying, but just substandard right now to prompt the tornado warning. It's still something that you need to be vigilant with, definitely the possibility for damaging straight line wind in southern Grayson County. Now let's toggle again and go back with the tornado warning, and we're going to show you how this is morphed around. Let's widen it out just a little bit. So we had the tornado warning coming out of this, moving off to the east, strong rotation, red, green, a little bit of blue in there. And now it starts to branch out. It's not as tightly wound. It's not like one of those figure skaters that starts doing those pirouettes when you really get that wind.
That's a great way to put it.
When you start to broaden out like this, you're losing the forcing mechanism. You lose that intensity as it starts to fan out like that. What can happen, some of those damaging straight line winds can affect a larger land mass than that real narrow, tightly wound potential tornadic wind that we did see. Now, this is definitely a positive, that the chance for a tornado happening out of this right now is much more slim. Right on 224, there's Lone Star up towards Upton. So I would take it right in the center of where we have this tornado warning, highlighted by that red box, right on the county line. Hardin and Hart County, right on the line, is where some of those stronger winds are being found.
Yeah, and it looks like this is becoming a straight line event for this specific portion of the line. You would say, Jude, I mean, that's what you were saying with the broadening out of the winds. I absolutely agree. I still think that 60-mile-per-hour winds are possible, but I'm not seeing the tight, bright rotation that we had earlier at this point. Now, we have seen it dumb down a little bit and come back up, and go down a little bit and come back up recently. So that does happen sometimes. Sometimes you just have a little bit of a decrease in either the speed shear or directional shear, and you don't see as much of the tight, bright rotation, and then it can spark back up very quickly because there's still a lot of atmosphere that hasn't been turned over ahead of this thing, Jude.
And let me go on and
absolutely
tell you thank you. So everyone watching right now, Matthew, he was on standby to come in. This guy right here hopped in his car. Would take you 10 minutes to get in this morning? 8 minutes, ready to go, rocking and rolling. And anytime you have severe weather coverage, the more hedge you can put on it is a lot better. Storm coverage is a lot better when you have multiple people and you can tell more of a story. So Matthew, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Slept in the suit last night just in case.
I slept in the suit.
I did. I'm serious. I had the pants on and everything. I got right out of bed.
He is like Superman. So thank you very much, Matthew. This is catching my attention. And while we have rotation in this southern Grayson County, the reason I'm a little bit, I don't want to say worried, but definitely there is some concern with it, is because when we first got that tornado warning that came out right around 5:05, the one that went through northern Grayson County, this is almost exactly what it looked like a couple minutes before the tornado warning was issued. So all eyes on this, which is going to move back towards Annetta. This will end up in Hart County. It's going to be the southern side of Hart County as it moves off towards the east. But right now, this one definitely has some spin action going on right on the south side. Let's see what it looks like when we throw the rain on. So this is the wind, that's the velocity.
There are no obvious hooks along this line by any means.
No, a little bit of that kink, but you know, if you ever Google supercell tornado radar images, it's not going to look like this. The images that pop up on that Google search are not going to look like this. But there is definitely a little bit of that half hole right there, which links up where there's potential rotation. Good job of going back and forth. And that's that wind, that warm south wind ramming into it. And then you get that wind on the north side cutting in like that, the cooler air flowing around it. So that notch, that inflow notch, which is going to track towards Annetta, I would expect the next 2 radar scans that we get, what's left of this will be about right here within the next 2 to 4 minutes. So this is what we have now. Let's do another regroup. It's 5:54. Hopefully these things die down and we can get back to your regular news, because the last thing Matthew and I want to do is to just keep talking weather all morning, especially now that this line continues to pile drive down to the south. We're so close to that finish line, not having to worry about any severe weather. After 7:30, This stuff will be south of Greene, Taylor, and Adair County, and we'll be wrapping this up. But where we have mid-60s, I mean, it's not far from 70 near the Kentucky-Tennessee border. This location has been untapped, and there is definitely instability. So we're going to watch this arrive into an air mass that will definitely lend itself to helping produce the possibility for severe weather. And you can follow along the line looking at lightning. Scattered lightning strikes, not much, but then you get to that severe thunderstorm, the tornado warning, and that's where the lightning has gone gangbusters. That's telling us a lot of updraft in there, probably some hail. This is definitely numero uno, the strongest storm that we have right now, Matthew.
And lightning, we've talked about this before, not today, but in other severe weather events, lightning is an indicator of the strength of a storm. If we're looking for a storm or a portion of a line that may produce a tornado, of course, we are looking at rotation. However, we also look at the intensity, not the reds and the greens of the rain, the intensity of the rain, but we are looking at the intensity of the lightning count. Most of this line has very little lightning, stretching all the way up from Willisburg down to Morgantown. But the spot that is tornado warned and just has a new severe thunderstorm warning issued on it as it crosses over I-65 and 31W, that's going to be the portion that has the most lightning, and it's the portion that has the rotation, or at least has had the most rotation this morning. But there are a few other areas further south where we're watching little bits of rotation here and there, here and there. You're zooming in on some. You want me to bring it up on our main screen here, Jude?
Yeah, because in between Upton and Bonneville, we've started to pop some more of that rotation. Looks like some wind intensification in the tornado warning, which is set to expire in 3 minutes.
A new severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible. I assume the tag is still on there.
It is.
It is. All right, tornado possible tag it just came up there. Again, that's north of Bonneville along I-65. So again, this is our main event that we've had this morning. This is our secondary event. The far southern portion of this line has these very small areas of rotation. They're not super strong, but you can just see enough of the bright blues and the darker greens together here, where we also have our NROT values that are increasing. So our rotation values along 65 have actually gone down significantly. That's becoming more of a broader wind event there, so it's straight line winds likely coming out of that storm. They still have tornado possible tag on it, but they downgraded it from a tornado warning to a severe thunderstorm warning because there's significantly less confidence in a tornado occurring along that portion of the line that's south of Upton, north of Bonneville, crossing over 65 right now. You go further west, this is just a severe thunderstorm warning, again with tornado possible tag. Wouldn't surprise me if they upgraded this soon, especially if we saw the winds on the western side, the winds that are wrapping around the backside of the storm. If we saw those intensify soon, we've already got winds going into the storm pretty quickly, higher in the atmosphere, but we need some coming around it. We need more rotation in that storm in order to get a tornado warning out of it. We don't want to see one necessarily, but now we're starting to see that severe thunderstorm warned storm further south and west along the line. I think it's picking up in some intensity. And there are a couple of other places closer to that are going to move north of Bowling Green that have some intensity as well with their rotation. So they may be outside of our area down toward Morgantown, but I think that the further south you get along this line, the higher the chances for rotating severe thunderstorms. So leave it right there, Jude, if you will, because very, very broad up here with any rotation. Annetta has that area of rotation moving across 259 right now.
I don't like the look.
That'll be the one that they put a new tornado warning on any second, because now you see, this is what we've been looking for, Jude. Now you see not just the dull dark greens, now you see the red next to the bright blue as it crosses over 259. So that's what we've been waiting on for, not confirmation of a tornado, but I would say higher agreement here that there's going to be the possibility of one dropping soon. So you're going to see a new red box come up any moment now, I think, with the tornado warning for far southern Grayson County toward Hart County. Doug Hill, Ponderosa, Iberia would be included in this. Snap, it'll be just south of you, but you'll be included in that warning most likely. Huffman, Annetta, again, it's over you, Annetta. So even though there's not a tornado warning, it's a severe thunderstorm with a tornado possible tag. We're seeing better rotation. We're seeing those reds and those greens next to each other. I think it's a good idea to get into your safe place at this point. If you're along 259 and east of 259, heading toward, again, Iberia, Doug Hill, Pine Springs, and Broad Ford. Those are going to be some spots. That severe thunderstorm warning just expired since it's 6 o'clock. However, a new scan just came in, Jude. I know you're looking at it. There's more red in that latest scan. There's more rotation with this one here. So anticipate a tornado warning coming out in any moment now.
Yep, it's going to be crossing over through Rough River Lake areas. It's on Annetta. It's moving east. And Matthew, what we want to do, you see the rotation there. Also, check out what happens on the reflectivity as we show you where it's raining. That notch, that inflow notch has become much more pronounced. I mean, it's like pointing directly up here. It's really started to pop up a little bit more on 259, Iberia, Doug Hill, Pine Springs. It's coming your way. Again, there it is. It just updated, moving past 259.
We'll go back to velocity here for you, and you can keep your finger right there, Jude, and there's that notch he's talking about, and there's the inflow. So that blue is the inflow going into the storm. The red are winds opposing. They're coming out of the storm.
Over around Ponderosa, the Ponderosa boat dock on Nolin Lake is probably going to take it right on the chin. So then head over towards Flag Island, right in the middle of Nolin Lake, Iberia Recreation Center. This is a mess that we have right now.
Look at this severe thunderstorm warning they just put out. Remember, I talked about multiple areas of rotation down toward Morgantown, Sunfish. So there are 3 spots here, if you point them out, of weak rotation 1, and then 2, and then 3. So all 3 of those are areas of rotation within that one severe thunderstorm. And then what was the main event earlier, and is still worth watching, but has been downgraded from the tornado warning to severe thunderstorm warning. That's the one heading toward Magnolia 31 east there. So, but yeah, I think that our best or our most likely area to drop a tornado anytime soon would be right here in far southeastern Grayson County, heading toward Doug Hill, north of Ponderosa. That's some pretty decent tight couplet that we have there, Jude.
Yes, and let's go back over towards the Hart County line as we look at that Magnolia storm, because this is what started all of the madness 1 hour ago, as we had a severe thunderstorm warning that quickly changed to a tornado warning. And this is a severe thunderstorm warning. This is that same cell with rotation. It has a tornado possible on it, does not have tornado warning. But this is what we're looking at in between the 3 towns of Tally, Hammondville, and then right down and through here. Look, the inflow and outflow is still there. It's not as tightly packed, which would say, hey, we have a tornado if you see it really tightly wound. But when the winds are this strong and they're spinning, at any point, sometimes it only takes 20 seconds, boom, that thing's down on the ground. And in the environment that we're dealing with this morning, that's probably how it would work. We're not going to see a tornado touch down and just barrel along for an hour. We don't have all of the parameters needed for that. That makes it a little bit more tricky, a little bit more confusing sometimes when you have these spins that come on strong and then they leave and then they come back. They keep cycling because it can't ingest the perfect primo conditions to allow tornadoes to stay down on the ground. But right on top of Hammondville, green and red, back through High Hickory. So now we're getting to a spot where there is a little more population. When it was over in Grayson County, we had large spaces without towns. One thing you notice as we zoom in, more and more towns popping up along 224 as it links up with 357. That is the nexus of this mess, the spin, the potential severe thunderstorm that could have a tornado with it, as it eventually ends up along 315 in between Magnolia and Jonesville. A lot of farmland down there, so we'll be looking at that. It's 6:04. Let's give a wide perspective right now. And Matthew, we don't have a tornado warning anywhere, do we?
No, not at this point. We don't, but there are the tornado possible tags on both of these severe thunderstorm warnings. One of them was tornado warned at one point and is heading toward Magnolia, that area of broader rotation, but it's still very gusty, you know, the 60-mile-per-hour winds coming out of that potentially. But then we have 3 areas of rotation within that westernmost severe thunderstorm warning there, stretching through Hart County, Grayson County, all the way down just north of Bowling Green there in Warren County. So for WKU students, if you have students down there, Jude, I'd say that they are safe and sound if they live in Bowling Green proper. Absolutely.
Yeah, right now, this thing would really have to back build and intensify, which is possible.
Yeah, the far southern side of this line, it does not have the look as the rest of it does at this point. It's basically missing on the southern end of the tail. But oftentimes on the southern end of a line of storms, that's where you're going to have the best inflow. It's unimpeded by other storms, and this area hasn't been run over by storms over the last few hours. So as you talked about earlier, there's still a lot of energy to work with here.
Plenty. What we're going to do, Candace and Lindsay, go on and get ready. We're going to take this for a couple more minutes. We'll take it right up to our commercial break, which happens at around 6:08. And if we don't get any tornado warnings in the next few minutes, we'll come back out of commercial. We'll go back to news. We'll get you caught up with everything that happened while you were asleep. And then we'll take it from there. And obviously, if any of these do turn into tornado warnings, we'll cut right back in. But for now, the rotation that's there is weak enough that we don't have tornado warnings. It's going to be a situation that we monitor. This one, and then right on top of Magnolia. These are the big three, and even one behind me that's just come on down around Morgantown. So we have 4 of them. This is outside of our viewing area, but it's still tracking to the east. So Hart County is going to end up in the crosshairs of this potential damaging straight line wind, if not an eventual potential for a quick spin up that might lead to a tornado touching down. So it's 6:06 right now. Matthew, let's go back to the wide perspective of all of Kentuckiana. As you're waking up, what are we going to do? How are we going to attack the day? Well, if you're north of the parkways, you're going to walk outside and you'll be like, it's a lot warmer. Temperatures 50s and 60s. Until you go way up here towards Highway 50, it's still pretty chilly up that way. There's going to be some wet roads right in through Metro Louisville, but the rain is not pouring down. We don't have thunderstorms, and we're going to have a lot of nice weather today before one more additional pop-up shower thunderstorm that comes on around dinner time. But until that happens, once this clears, we're looking pretty good. So now south of E-Town. E-Town is in the clear.
Yep.
It's the Hardin-Hart County line down around Magnolia where we have a ton of lightning, heavy rain. It's a narrow line that's only going to linger at your location for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. It's moving quickly. It's like 10 miles wide, and then it does its thing. Campbellsville, Columbia, Greensburg, Green, Taylor, and Adair County, more than likely going to have a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of those locations when it comes onto the scene, as we take you through the 6:15, 6:30 time frame.
Jude, I'm willing to bet anywhere that's north of Lebanon, your severe weather threat is 0 at this point.
Yeah, just a couple lightning strikes. If you're north of Lebanon up towards Willisburg, watching that heavy rain, there could be some small hail, but you know, the large town of beautiful Bardstown, Kentucky, where it was raining and storming a little while ago, that's not happening right now. So there's a look at the radar. Alec, if you're listening, you let me know how many more seconds until we're supposed to take it until the commercial break, and I'll run it right up to that point, and then we can go to the commercial, and we'll come back. We'll get in with Lindsay and Candace and get some news stories of the day. This is a look at our radar right now, moving south of the Western Kentucky Bluegrass Parkway along the Cumberland Parkway is going to be getting hit. So that's the latest with the severe thunderstorm warnings. We'll go to commercial. We'll come back and check in with Candace and Lindsay.
WDRB News is sponsored by Tom Drexler's Free February.
Tonight, let's do something a little different.
This is happening. This is how we win.
Garanka.
Who's feeling lucky?
The floor.
Wow.
You don't know what's going to happen on this show.
I hear you had a special shirt.
Whether your car has small tires, big tires, tires that go fast, tires with extra grip, or tires that just get you from here to there, they can be an unexpected expense. Don't wait any longer. At Big O Tires, we have no credit needed financing available. Big O Tires, the team you trust.
I'm certain it's level 5.
Are you for imprint certain?
I'm certain it's level 5.
Certainty matters, like the certainty of 4imprint, your home for high-quality promotional gear, including exclusive items and brands they love, printed perfectly and guaranteed to arrive on time. To wow your clients, nail your next event, or inspire your team, check out 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain. The President's Day sale is going on now at Schmidt Furniture. For a limited time, save 15% when paying cash on regular price merchandise, or pay over time with up to 36 months and no interest financing. These are the best prices of the year on sofas, sectionals, recliners, bedroom sets, dining sets, and more. Look for special savings on mattress sets from Tempur-Pedic and Beautyrest Black, and save even more with free delivery within 50 miles. Don't miss the President's Day sale at Schmidt Furniture on the furniture corner of State and Main, downtown New Albany.
Considering replacing your cabinets? You may not need to. By refinishing or resurfacing, new image cabinet coatings can save you money and increase the value of your home. They use industrial quality paint, which is more durable than your standard wall paint, designed to stand up to daily wear and tear. They also offer redesign options to maximize the use of your space. Let us transform your space while enhancing both beauty and value. Contact New Image Cabinet Coatings for a free estimate today.
After an injury, you need someone in your corner, someone by your side through your recovery, to fight with you and win with you. That someone is attorney Sam Aguirre.
At Big O Tires, trust means an entire line of affordable top-quality tires drivers can depend on. And right now, buy 3, get 1 free on 4 select in-stock Big O branded tires, plus 0 interest if paid in full. Big O Tires, the team you trust.
All right, we'll check in with Lindsay and Candace in a little while. Wouldn't you know it? We go to commercial, and some of that rotation in the last 2 minutes has become more tightly wound, and we now have a tornado warning. Now, in our viewing area, we're watching this. It's going to skirt northern Greene County over into Taylor County. As it stands right now, the worst of this storm would stay just to the north of Campbellsville, but we have a tornado warning that's going to go for about 30 more minutes. And just because it says until 5:45 Central Time, 6:45 Eastern Time, that doesn't mean it goes right to that point. This thing could intensify, it could weaken, and we might have to make it go longer, or we could just shut it down in 15 minutes. It's all about how the intensity stays embedded in these storms. So let's zoom in, and we'll get to this tornado warning in a little while, but it's not quite yet here in Kentuckiana. I want to get into this one where we have Greene, Hart, LaRue, Taylor County tornado warning. Also the likelihood for some hail of a 1/2 inch to 1 inch in diameter. Let's go on and zoom in. We'll do some storm trackings and show you some of these towns that are in the path of this storm. Greensburg, you're in the clear for a little while. Matthew, if you could go on and zoom in on this storm over here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jude. Hold on. It wasn't updating.
I
my bad.
appreciate you helping out.
Yep.
I know it's easy to be drawn right to all the red because it's like that's the color that is the most vibrant. Usually that's not where the tornado is. The red's telling us where it's raining heavily and where we have some hail. What you want to look for is a little bit of a donut hole, and that would be right here, just south of Mount Sherman. This is where we have rotating winds that are very strong, wrapped up in rain coming down. So this is going to make it impossible, if there was a tornado down, to see, you know, the funnel coming and coming, plus it's dark out. This thing is wrapped up in rain if indeed we would get some of that rotation down to the ground. But let me show you what it looked like in the last 5 minutes. The reason we went to a tornado warning, and I said it makes it a little bit confusing how this works, how you get these cycles when the environment is just not perfecto to produce severe weather. So a more pronounced area of rotation, even though it's broad. Now we'll fast forward a few minutes, take that off to the east, becomes a little more tightly wound. It's
right
like, okay,
over 31E. Look
right
at that.
There. Better put a tornado warning out.
They did.
Now we advance it a few minutes after that, and it starts to broaden out again. It's not as tight. So this just yanks our chain somewhat. Every few moments, that stronger wind shows up inside the storm. This is moving towards Bloyd. This is going to be over in between Badger and Mack. There's 210. Take it down towards Allendale. Right in the middle there. Usually when you see those boxes representing severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warning, in this case, you want to follow right in the middle of it because that's where you have the highest probability of some of the worst conditions. And Matthew's lined up that storm tracker right on top of that strong rotation and moves off to the east. I mean, these things are still scooting at around 50 miles per hour, aren't they, Matthew?
Yes, yes, they are. And I can double check on that to make sure that I've got the right facts for you. But
Pittman, Bengal, and Saloma in the next 10 to 20 minutes. If there's a tornado down, that's where those strong winds would be. Mount Sherman in the heavy rain and the chance for some hail on the northern flank of that. Matthew, you have an update?
Yeah, it's moving 40 miles per hour. So a little bit slower than they were earlier at this point, but still again, moving at a good clip. Most of this is going to be out of here pretty quickly. I mean, again, we go over to our reflectivity. This is to show the rain and the intensity of the showers and storms. And you see a lot of reds and oranges in here. So there is torrential downpours happening across our area, and that's going to be in and out. You get it for about 30 minutes or so at the most, and then you're going to be done for most of the day. We'll still have opportunities for some rain later this evening, but not severe weather by any means. This is our severe weather event. It's happening this morning, and there are 2 areas, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, 2 tornado warnings as well. Now, the severe thunderstorm warning that's along and east of I-65, Magnolia, all the way almost or through Badger toward Bengal, that's where we're watching the tornado warning that popped up inside of it. So that's got some pretty decent rotation, or at least did, as it was over US 31 east. Now you go further to the south and west, it's just outside of our viewing area, but a storm that had moved the southern tail, and we talked about this unimpeded flow. It's able to strengthen very rapidly. Morgantown wasn't included in the tornado warning. However, the rotation moved just over them and then tightened as it was going further to the east. Again, that's well north of Bowling Green. Don't worry about your WKU students this morning. They're just going to get some regular old rain to start the day, but I don't think that they have a severe weather threat.
So, Matthew, we mentioned the town of Bengal, and then as we go back to the west towards Summersville Mennonite Church, this is right along Summersville Road where we're tracking the rain and that possible tornado. There's Allendale. There's a little more of a hook. A little while ago, I said if you Googled supercell tornadoes and looked at radar imagery, it's not going to be matched up to what we've seen around here. This is not textbook, but certainly a little more of that notch trying to get going. I think it's trying to cycle again and reform and intensify. On the backside, this thing is really spread out to where it's not a concentrated area of rotating wind. There's rotation, and that rotation is about 3,000 feet off the ground. This is more of a, in my opinion, a straight line wind situation now, where it would be spreading out some of those winds 50 to 60 miles per hour. So Big Pittman Creek, I mentioned Summersville Mennonite Church, and then we'll take that along 323, move it over towards Bengal in the path, and then Early's Chapel United Methodist Church along 323 is going to be in the path of this. I know this is not the typical view that you see with the radar as we're looking at velocity, the red versus the green. Those colors just represent how the raindrops are moving inside the thunderstorm, and there's plenty of raindrops. This is depositing about an inch and a half of rain in a short period of time, so a lot of runoff, possible minor flooding out of it. Let's go back to a wider view.
Yeah. Jude, can I give a quick science explanation here again? Just another example of the lightning that we talked about earlier. So you see a lot of lightning inside both of these tornado warnings here. But in particular, I'm going to draw it back a short time ago. And Jude, if you'll point down toward the Morgantown area for me, and that's where we had some rotation. You see, you go there, it's tightened up for sure, but you go to Morgantown, you see some rotation. We mentioned it, and it was inside this severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible tag. And then you pull it forward, you pull it forward, you pull it forward, and the rotation was tightening up that whole time. Now, let's go back to lightning. You go back to the same spot. This is where there was just some rotation, but very little lightning, right?
3 lightning strikes.
You start to see more lightning, more lightning, more lightning, more lightning. That was the storm intensifying. And so the more lightning you tend to get with the storm, the stronger it's going to be. But especially when you're looking along a line of storms like this, and you see a bunch of lightning start popping up in one area, and you start to see some rotation happening, and then it starts to really tighten up. So that's what we're looking for in these instances. More lightning in a rapid succession happening very quickly. You're seeing an intensifying portion of the storm that could spin up a tornado. And in both of the areas where you've had the most lightning, you've had tornado warnings pop up here. And we just had a new severe thunderstorm warning pop up as well. South of our tornado warned storm there. So it does cover Hart County over into Greene County, just north of Greensburg, but includes Summersville, Eve, Jonesville, Bonneville. Let me see. Yes, there is absolutely rotation in this. This is the same one that moved through Wax earlier in Annetta. So it's getting ready to cross over I-65, the Bonneville area, east of Priceville already. So Priceville, you're no longer underneath a tornado threat from this. I don't think at this point. It's just off to your east, heading toward or south of Bonneville along 31W and I-65, Jude.
And I want to mention this because I know some of you are going to be frustrated as you wake up, you tune in to get your weather, traffic, news updates. What is so frustrating about this for us, you know, these little spins showing up on the radar, they come and they go. Just when you think, all right, it's safe, we can cut back to coverage, then it pops up like this right here. We don't want to stay on mentioning the possibility of tornadoes. We have not had any confirmation. We haven't had any damage reports.
No.
Candace, Lindsay, Matthew, nothing to pass along. But this is definitely a situation where it shows up and it's like, you've got to be on this. I mean, in this environment, you can very easily get winds of 100 miles per hour that come down for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, and then it's right back up in the sky and it's gone. It's on top of Bonneville, I-65 here. This is going to be moving towards Bolton Schoolhouse Missionary Baptist. This is crossing 31W and I-65 right now. I always like to give some landmarks in advance of where you have the worst of this storm. Definitely straight line winds. The signature right in here, paralleling Interstate 65 and 31W, winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour. And then that'll take a jaunt over towards 31E and where it meets up with 936 and then heading towards Pikeview Baptist Church as it runs along Jonesville Mill Road. Friendship Church, also another spot where we have the possibility of some damaging wind. Those velocity winds that we see, you know, it's definitely on the threshold, right on the cusp, where it's just dangerous enough to where you can't disregard it and dismiss it and brush it aside. Because anytime you see that, it's like, you're right there. You're right on the brink of where you could possibly get a tornado. So let's show everyone what's happening here in southern Kentucky. And as soon as we, as trained meteorologists, see that this is not a threat, this is something that says we're not going to have tornadoes, believe me, we're going to pass it on over to the news desk. And every minute that passes by, we're getting closer to moving this line to the south and working it away from Greene, Taylor, and Adair County to where we can give the all clear. As it stands right now at 6:22 in the morning, there's nothing that is a guarantee tornado. It's all hypothetical. It's all a possibility. It's a probability that right here, just outside of our viewing area, southern
Edmonson County, down
well
there.
South of Grayson County, down into Edmonson County, this is where there is a potential tornado. It would come back towards Hart County. As we watch this over the next 10 to 15 minutes. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, as you've been doing some analyzing, would you agree that this is the one that probably stands out the most right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Is the potentially most dangerous storm that we have ongoing in this line.
Now, there may be reason for that. Again, you mentioned earlier that our radar beam is going higher into the atmosphere, so there's a little bit more rotation up there than maybe all the way down to the ground. We're not getting a great look at the ground on any of these, but it is the furthest one away from our Fort Knox radar. So that may be part of the reason that we are seeing more rotation there. But even if we use GR Analyst, Jude, and you were looking at NROT earlier, it does look like that one had the highest rotation value overall. So this is north of Brownsville, south of Black Gold and Ridgedale, heading toward Ollie, and it will move very likely almost due east just south of B over in Hart County. So that's what we're watching for our next potential tornado warning in our viewing area. I mean, it is butted up right to the Hart County and Grayson County line on the northern side of it, but it's not in Hart or Grayson County by any means, Jude.
If you can switch it over to the analyst computer.
Yeah, I got you.
And let's show how we've just picked up, it's referred to as a TVS, tornadic vortex signature, upside down triangle there represented right in the middle of some very powerful winds moving towards Brownsville.
Now, Jude, you said a TVS, not a TDS, correct?
TVS, tornadic vortex signature.
Will you explain the difference of the two for folks out there?
A tornadic vortex signature, again, doesn't guarantee that a tornado would be down on the ground. It's more of a hypothetical, but it's telling us, boy, those winds aloft are really cranked up. The likelihood continues to grow that you could easily get a tornado coming down. TDS, you're talking about a debris signature, which we do not have.
Right.
In fact, you can switch over, Matthew. At least we haven't seen it up to this point.
We have not.
As we go to the CC mode, right in the middle of that vortex signature. If we had a TDS, you would see a void right under there.
Green, black, blue.
The purple would not be there. So a little bit of good news.
TDS, tornado debris signature, means for sure a tornado's happening.
The radar's not picking up debris. So that's what we have. That's the strongest cell. That's the most vicious right now. It's just outside of Hart County. I want to extend over to the east and look at Kentuckiana, what's going on with the here or the now, as we have multiple warnings. Currently more of a severe thunderstorm warning situation as the winds have briefly come down when you look at it for potential rotation. But in Munfordville, where we are still looking at some rotation, that green and red speck just north of Munfordville, that could possibly turn into a tornado warning in the coming moments. Matthew, let's zoom in right there. Just go north of the O and the R in Munfordville to the east of Bonnieville. This is out over a lot of open farmland currently, so this is not a highly populated area. As it moves towards Pike View, we're going to see those strong winds. But in Kentuckiana at this point, this would be the spot that we have to pay the closest attention to for the time being. Also, we said Greene, Taylor, Adair County over around Campbellsville, one of the bigger populated cities that we have in southern Kentucky. It's almost your time to get involved with these storms as they move in your direction. They're getting away from Bonnieville. Magnolia, you've been under the gun for quite some time. This was the OG, the original thunderstorm that came at us with the rotation that started this mess at around 5 o'clock this morning. Right now, it's more of just a straight-lined wind situation. The winds aren't as tightly wound. It's north of Campbellsville, but this entire line is moving down to the south. This is the area of rain. This is what we're looking at as we give you that side-by-side. Rain versus the wind. So this rain's moving through, and it's going to disrupt your early morning. You know, kids going to school, parents having to do whatever they have to do. This is a mess. This is rain that'll be an inch, inch and a half coming down. A lot of lightning embedded in there, maybe some small hail. No destructive hail necessarily. No. More of the penny size, BB size, the little ones. But it tells you that they're strong updrafts, and when they're strong updrafts, that can potentially lead to tornadoes. So right now, watching this severe thunderstorm, this is not a tornado warning, but watching this severe thunderstorm warning that's moving towards Greene County with the worst of the rotation with the current up-to-the-minute look.
Yeah, so you mentioned hail earlier. North of Campbellsville up in Taylor County, we've got the possibility of some hail. And you see my little cursor going around here. This is in the northeastern portion of the tornado warning. Some hail possible. The possibility of severe sized hail, very, very low. If we're talking an inch or greater, it's a very low chance. So we'll throw back on rain there. It's heavy rain, lots of lightning, and also a little bit of rotation. But again, you go north of Campbellsville, is the rotation still there? A little bit, but not a ton. It's something that we're keeping an eye on, but I don't think that it's the main show any longer. Like you said, Jude, this spot right here, yes, it is still rotating. It's getting ready to move through north central Taylor County, and as it goes north of Campbellsville, the threat is still there. You still see a tornado warning that goes for another couple of minutes. Worth keeping an eye on, but also worth saying that that rotation has come down some. But we said that earlier, mentioned that it could go back up, that it could start spinning like a top again and drop a tornado, and it absolutely did start spinning like a top. However, we don't have confirmation of any tornadoes that have touched down this morning. No damage confirmation, no sightings by folks on the ground. None of our storm spotters or any of the EMA folks have said anything. We've been checking the National Weather Service chat. seeing what they're saying about these storms, no reports of tornadoes so far this morning. Only tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings so far. So the tornado warning for Greene and Taylor County, that goes until 6:45. So we actually have another 15 minutes on it. Excuse me, not until 6:30, but until 6:45 for our Eastern time zones here now that we are east of I-65. This is going to be moving at 40 miles per hour. Campbellsville, it'll be right in your area within 10 minutes from now. Mansville, within the next 12 minutes. A little bit less than 20 minutes. Atchison. For those that are in Clementsville, it's still well outside of your area. You've got a lot of heads up here, but a lot can happen between now and the time that it reaches you. Anything can happen. We've seen these things pulse. They go up a little and they go down. They go up a little and they go down with the rotation values. So a lot happens within this line of storms when in anticipation, I would say, but very little has happened damage-wise from any potential tornadoes. We just haven't gotten those reports so far. Most of this has been occurring with any broad winds, so we've seen a broadening out of winds, especially on the northern side, and then it'll rotate a little bit more. One area that we haven't seen any broadening of the winds, though, is the tornado warning for Edmonson County. That goes until 5:45 Central Time. Again, the hail on these storms, minimal at best. We're talking penny size or less so far. But you see a lot of lightning with the southern side of this storm as it's passing north of Brownsville. Brownsville's in the tornado warning, but I don't think that they have a tornado threat at this point because the rotation is north of them. But where you have more lightning, you've got more rotation happening there as well. So undoubtedly the southern side of the storm is strengthening, and that tornado warned portion of the line will move into Hart County very soon, Jude.
Matthew, I want you to switch over to our analyzer computer.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I really appreciate your help. We're going to look at that storm that's about to head into Hart County.
Oh, the NROT values there, Jude.
This is vicious. This is bad news. This is the strongest signature we have seen all morning, just north of Brownsville. Now, the deal is, this is not in Kentucky, and it's one county away from Hart County. Also, Matthew, if you don't mind, zooming in here, right where you see that upside down green triangle as we look at the velocity. I mean, this thing is wrapped up. This thing is going bonkers. Now, it's about 4,000 feet off the ground where the radar beam is actually hitting. And now if you can put the reflectivity on it, because about 2 minutes ago, there was a donut hole right in here.
You see it?
Right there. So let me explain what's going on and why, if there's going to be a tornado, this would be the cell that most likely has a tornado as it's moving just east of Lindsayville. When you have those strong updraft winds, if it's rain wrapped, if that rotation is embedded in a downpour, well, those strong winds are taking it and throwing it thousands of feet in the sky. So you're going to see that void. You're going to see that little donut right there. Doesn't mean 100% guarantee there's a tornado, but man, those winds could easily be greater than 100, 125 miles per hour, a couple thousand feet off the ground. That's why it takes on that look. And in comparison, when you do the double look with the winds and just rotation, taking the noise out, the fact that we've gone to the yellow category, all you need to know is yellow is bad news. Green is bad news, but when you start popping those yellows and eventually maybe some orange, the probabilities continue to increase that a tornado has touched down, and this is the cell that within the next, I'd say, 10 minutes or so, we'll be crossing the border, heading into Hart County. There's Mammoth Cave, so this is going to be dangerously close to the Mammoth Cave area.
It looks like B in Hart County would be an area that this makes it to, or just south of B at this point. So if you live south of B, you're not in a tornado warning right now, but I would absolutely say that it's a good idea for you to know where your safe place is. Cherry Spring Road, that's a great marker. Cherry Spring Road and Gap Hill Road. They're very close to each other along the Hart and Edmonson County line. If you're south of those roads or along those roads, go ahead and get in your safe place. Let's say Cub Run Highway as well. You're south of Cub Run Highway in Hart County, south of Munfordville or in Munfordville. Go ahead and get into your safe place because this storm has undoubtedly strengthened, and it is the show at this point, Jude. I'm broadening out just to see if we have any more rotation with our NROT values. Not really. North of Campbellsville, it's all come down significantly. And right over your hand there, if you point on the, actually, yeah, you can see with my cursor, right next to you, or your shoulder. There you go. That's the tornado warning that was issued earlier. That was for the very first tornado of the day, and it's been off and on tornado warned throughout this morning. And the values have come down a lot on our correlation, or excuse me, on our velocity values there.
So want to get back to mentioning that in the path of this, coming out of the Brownsville area, Hart County, go on and get into a safe place. This will definitely be carried into a severe thunderstorm warning for Hart County. The likelihood is there. It'll most likely go to a tornado warning unless this thing just all of a sudden gives it all away and dies out. This is moving on a beeline in between Horse Cave and Munfordville, so that would be Hart County, and right now a very strong signature that we see rotating winds, possible tornado. That was near Brownsville. That has moved east, Sow Hollow Campground. That's going to be, let's see, crossing the Green River. We're taking it over towards Green River Bluffs Trail through the Mammoth Cave area, as we showed you that, dangerously close to a very popular touristy area. Thank goodness it's winter and no one's probably camping out there this time of the year. But it will head over at least a not so populated area and then get into some populated locations as it moves towards Interstate 65 once again. So strong rotation, possible tornado, a little rotation up towards Kessinger, moving towards 31W. The strongest cell that is embedded in this line.
There you go. There's your tornado warning, Jude.
Yeah, just outside of our viewing area, but it now includes Hart County.
Yep, so we mentioned, again, if you were going to be Cub Run Highway and south, you would want to get into your safe place. That's basically where this tornado warning, now the northern side of it, is lined up for. So let me draw out another one of these trackers here for us, Jude. And this is moving at about 40 miles per hour. So within the next hour, it'll be right on the doorstep of Munfordville. So Northtown, Logston Valley there in the southern half of Hart County are included in this. Within the next 15 minutes, it could be in either one of your areas. But this is just now getting outside of Ollie, heading toward B. Within the next couple scans, I think that this rotation is going to be south of B in Hart County toward Forestville, Northtown, crossing over I-65 between Horse Cave and Munfordville. Very likely going to be Rowletts. So between Logston Valley and Rowletts is where this thing is going to end up. Anywhere within that rotation there could be a tornado. However, I think it's going to be smack dab in the middle where you see the brightest of the blues and the reds right next to each other here. So I'll get my pointer out. Right in here is going to be our best chance for a tornado to occur. That's still in Edmonson County, but it is going to head into Hart County within the next 5 to 10 minutes, Jude.
Matthew, let's do some radar analyzing. Let's move it around. So I-65, 31W.
Okay.
Matthew pointed out Rowletts in between Horse Cave. Let's see, we've got the Holiday Inn Express there at Horse Cave. We've got the Dutch Country Safari Park down there. These are just some landmarks. The Horse Cave rest area, it's a very nice rest area. It's huge this time of the morning. I'm sure there's a lot of people there. That's where this is moving into Hart County. And this has been the one that really hasn't cycled. It hasn't lost the intensity. It's cycled and got stronger. And in the last 10 to 15 minutes, it has held its own. It hasn't weakened, but also this is the most southern storm that we have ongoing right now. The reason that's important, the farther south you are, the more spring-like air that we're tapping into. Temperatures close to 70 near the Kentucky-Tennessee border where this is existing. It's moving in a location. As we widen out here, I want to show you where it's moving into an area that has not had any rain. So there's no rain-cooled conditions. It is ripe for the taking to take all that fuel and for this to continue to hold its own. If there's going to be a storm that doesn't cycle and weaken, this would be the one that would have the best chance to move into Hart County and then potentially continue into Greene County with the chance for these possible tornadic winds, and then over towards Taylor and eventually Adair County. As we often see, it's that one county that sticks out all by itself, way down south. It's usually like the grand finale of severe weather episodes. While it's currently quiet at 6:38 in the morning, it is going to change. Candace and Lindsay, I don't want to leave you guys out on an island all by yourself. I know you've been monitoring the news wires, checking in with Weather Service chats. Have there been anything that's passed along to where you need to say, guys, this is important?
I've not seen any damage reports or anything. Right. Most of what I've seen is comments of people saying, I'm hearing tornado sirens in Vine Grove. I'm hearing tornado sirens in Rhineyville, but I've not seen any damage posts at this point, although people are welcome to send us a message.
And what's important about that, you hear the tornado warning sirens going off. You mentioned Vine Grove, Rhineyville. Those were all locations well north of where there was even the chance of a tornado, and that's another problem by itself. A lot of times in these counties, if you're even near where that tornado warning is issued, the siren sounds and it goes off just as a generic sounding siren because there's a tornado warning nearby, even though at your location you have no worries. So that's startling, especially early in the morning at 6:40 as we track these off to the east. Let's head up towards Campbellsville. Campbellsville about to get whacked with the rain, with the lightning, the possibility of some small hail as we head towards Bradfordsville, getting hit right now with probably some small hail, very heavy rain, tons of lightning in here, but severe thunderstorm warnings as the once thunderstorm that had rotation in it and possible tornadoes has continued to show less and less rotation. But definitely quite a bit of wind embedded. I'd estimate maybe wind speeds of 35 to 50 miles per hour. There is nothing that jumps out in it that's like, this is severe, this is bad, this is dangerous. It's certainly not great, but it's a lot better than where we were over the last 20, 25, 30 minutes. And then now to the big one as we take you down towards Hart County. See the difference? I mean, the newest tornado warning, this is easiest to pinpoint. You don't even have to be a trained meteorologist. Green and red, it's like a sore thumb sticking out. Remember, the green colors going towards the radar, which is up at Fort Knox. The red, warm colors, that's going away. So way in and out, and that is the rotation that is still almost identical to what we've seen when this came on about 20 minutes ago, and it's about to cross into Hart County, and I would say bisect right in the middle of Horse Cave and Munfordville. Wouldn't you say it's still almost on a due easterly path there, Matthew?
Absolutely it is. So Rowlett's is one area on the other side of US 31W that we mentioned that it would be heading toward. It's very likely that that will be the same area that it heads toward. I'm going to zoom out very quickly here, Jude, and I do want to address the tornado warning that was up in Greene and Taylor County. That has expired. Now you still see the red box here. I'll point it out for you. You still see this red box. It says it's tornado warned, but it's not. The National Weather Service expired that about 4 or 5 minutes ago, and they have issued a new severe thunderstorm warning downstream for basically the same portion of the line. You see the orange box now, that's a severe thunderstorm warning for tornado possible, but they're not confident enough in the rotation there because the rotation, as Jude said, has come down significantly. They're not confident enough in that rotation value to actually put a new tornado warning on it. So that's why they issued a severe thunderstorm warning, and that one goes out until, I believe, 7:30. I'll have to double check on that one. But yeah, that new severe thunderstorm warning, that goes out until 7:15, moving 50 miles per hour, 60 mile per hour wind gusts possible, and still has the tornado possible tag on there. Jude?
Matthew, let's look for potential tornado debris signature. We were describing the difference between a TVS and a TDS, the debris signature, as we head towards Brownsville, where we had the tornado first develop, potential tornado first develop. As if we can rewind,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's give a different vantage point. If we can pull back a little farther to the west. Thank you very much. Let's see if there was anything in there that sticks out like, well, we had a tornado.
Let's find out first where our velocity picked up. So Morgantown, just east of them, around 606. All right, keep your finger there, and I'll get it back to 606 with our correlation coefficient. All right.
Going to take it right into that tornado warning.
All right. So there, right there. And we're not seeing anything, not seeing
right. That might be that might be something right there.
Possibly. That was when our TVS came up, but we did not have a TDS by any means at that point. And I'm still not seeing any, and we're right up to where we are now. So no clear indication of a tornado debris signature, but based on velocity earlier, we did have the tornado vortex signature.
If you don't mind switching over to the analyzer.
I can do that.
Let's go to the analyst computer, and let's look. We're going to do a split where we have the very strong rotation right now, just north of Mammoth Cave, now into Hart County. That is the TVS, the tornadic vortex signature.
Do you want me to take it back to where it first came up?
In 1
Yes,
second.
sir.
That's like a level up. Just saying there's intensification. The winds are really strong. The probabilities are growing that a tornado could be happening right there. Now we match that up in a rain-wrapped scenario. It is right in the middle of pouring down rain and maybe even some hail. So these are the worst of the worst. You can't see anything. I mean, if there's a tornado, you don't know it until your house is getting knocked around. Now let's take this back a little bit. Let's throw on the correlation, the CC, and see if we can find any debris signature out of that. So if you're not going to have a tornado, you want it to stay all pink or purple, that magenta color. So let's see what it looked like when it started, when it was really intense around Brownsville. There's a little bit of discoloration in there. Keep going. So, yeah, right there. There was the possibility that a tornado did touch down, but we don't have that right now. We don't see that same look. If you fast forward to what's going on currently as it's moving into Hart County, magenta, magenta, magenta. It doesn't have any other color around it, which tells us we don't have debris being lofted into the air.
Correct.
This is around 4,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and if there was debris, the radar would easily be seeing it that high up in the air. So it's at least some good news, but boy, I mean, when you look at this kind of wind signature on it, that gets your heart racing a little bit. As a meteorologist, Matthew, you see that and it's like, ooh, not what you want to have to deal with, especially before the sun is up. Two things going against you. It's pitch black, and then you have this strong wind field embedded in pouring rain and potentially some small hail. So you are blinded by these intense winds. If you're not watching coverage, or if you haven't been alerted to the chance for severe weather, you can be sound asleep and not know it until it's right on your house, and that's a problem. Pick up the phone if you have a chance. If you know anyone in Hart County, it doesn't matter if they're even in the path. If they're in Hart County, go on and give them a call and alert them.
And what are the two cities we've been calling out along I-65 this whole time in Hart County? Munfordville and Horse Cave, right?
And Rowlett's, right
on the other side there. That's where it's heading towards. So still anticipating this area of rotation going directly between Munfordville and Horse Cave. At this point, I still think that there is enough rotation that warrants a tornado warning, especially when we're looking at our NROT values. Anything above the blues, you know, when you see this, the green and blue next to each other with their NROT values, it's a little bit different than what we're really looking at when we're looking at just our rotation values, the inbound and the outbound winds. But the outbound winds on this a little bit stronger than some of the previous tornado warnings on other storms that we've seen. So a little bit more confidence that there is tornado potential within this moving between. And we kept saying Munfordville to Horse Cave along 65 and 31W. Right in there is going to be our best chance for this storm to move in Hart County. And that's exactly where it's going, at about 40 to 50 miles per hour, eastward trajectory, due east at this point. And Rowlett's is a spot that we kept calling out. I think, again, that's going to be just on the other side of 65. I think that that's going to be there probably within the next 10 minutes or so. Logsdon Valley, well, of course, it's going to be just south of you any moment now. Munfordville within 8 minutes. Uno within the next 13 minutes. Hardyville 17 minutes. And still more than 30 minutes down the line, Donensburg. You're well off to the east. You can barely see yourselves on the screen. But yes, I think that you two need to be paying attention to this storm. You don't have to head to your safe place right now. You're not in immediate danger from this. But north of Northtown, or just east of Northtown, I should say, is where this rotation is now heading toward I-65. Rowlett's, you're right down the line from this thing. You give it another 5 to 6 minutes, and it's going to be in your area, Jude.
Matthew, I was just speaking with Mike Marshall. We're going to check in with him because as he was looking at some of the traffic maps down around Hart County, definitely a couple locations where you've seen some slow spots. Mike, tell us where you're picking those up.
Well, we're taking a look at the map here, Jude. You can see as you're heading down right on 65 out near Bonneville. That's one area. If we could get over to the traffic map, I'll show you exactly what we're looking at here. But up and down 65.
We've able to pull that map up from Mike's. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
That's what we're looking for.
So you guys are talking about this rain, this storm moving over 65. There's Bonneville and Munfordville right in this area. We've already started to see the interstate. Pretty heavy rain coming down at this point. And then over on 31E, as this rain is moving eastbound, you're going to see there's Magnolia and Jonesville. And we've been a little bit heavy in that area. So we do expect the traffic to be a little bit heavy as you're making.
Here, Mike.
Yes, sir.
So these are the exact areas.
Yes,
where
exactly.
that strong rotation crossed. We mentioned right around here. And then when it went over to 31,
right.
We're not saying that there's trees in the roads, but something's going on.
Haven't had any reports, but you can definitely see the pattern right with the rain, and you can see that pattern on the interstate just as you're heading up a little bit northeast where that traffic is running a little heavy. So just be extra cautious as you're heading out. We will get some reports of damage a little bit later on as the daylight starts to pop up. We start to see the sunlight. And we'll see maybe a possibility some downed trees, maybe even, I haven't had any reports of any power lines down at this point, but just a lot of water that's out on the roadway here, especially 65. It's been running a little heavy there out around Bonneville and then right down to about Munfordville. Now we're going to get back over to Jude talking about this weather. We're going to talk about the velocity, the wind speeds.
Yep. Hey, Mike, you know where Kentucky Down Under Adventure Zoo is. You've taken your kids there before. Very popular location. That's almost identical to where it matches up with this possible tornado. There has been no weakening out of this.
No, none whatsoever.
In fact, there's been times when it's gotten a little bit stronger and stronger, and it's still there. It's right into Hart County, and we're going to take a rain-wrapped possible tornado in the next 5 minutes and put it across an interstate where you have continuous travel. The only thing that might alert you to this would be if there's power flashes. You cannot see a thing. We're still a long ways off before the sun's up. And right in the middle, which is the worst that you can deal with, right in the middle of all this orange and red, that's where those winds could be putting down a tornado. Even if there's not a tornado, this could very well have winds gusting greater than 90 miles per hour. And it's matched up. It's on I-65 right now, and it's going to go back to 31W and then 31E. These are the areas Mike Marshall just highlighted where we had multiple tracks of rotation in the last hour cross on through. Candace told me that around Upton, Kentucky, there was video that she saw online of a bunch of hail coming down. So that does make sense. A lot of hail, usually a ½ inch to maybe an inch in diameter is what we've seen, which is the lower end. But that tells us there's a lot of updrafts, strong updrafts, which makes sense. So this is just a double-edged sword of bad news between the hail and the possible tornado, where there's a lot of people driving this morning.
Yeah, so far I've seen some reports of hail larger than a quarter over Mercer County. That's just outside of our area, a little bit further to the east. I haven't seen any big hail reports for most of us. We do have a new tornado warning here, Jude. That's going to be just to the east of Merrimack, so just outside of Taylor County. That's at our far, far southern portion of Nelson here. This is well outside of Lebanon, but yeah, that tornado warning just came out moments ago. And while we were talking about the traffic situation further to the south, looks like our rotation has picked up further to the north. It's heading toward Chilton, so this is getting just outside of our viewing area within the next few minutes, Jude. So that's along State Road 49 there in Nelson County, in the far southeastern corner of it.
This will be a 3 to 4 minutes watching this rotation, and then it's not going to be our problem. Not that we're happy about that, because it's going to be a bad concern as it moves off to the east. I mean, this is that wicked rotation, but at least for us locally, for all of our friends and family here in Kentuckiana, once we're at 7 o'clock, this thing passes on through, and we will not mention this tornado warning one more time. We will cross that off the list. But as you can see, a lot of those bright pinks showing up, a little bit of green, some rotation, more of a broadening field of damaging winds that could possibly be 65 to 75 miles per hour. Matthew, if you don't mind, hit that info button and just pop on some wind speeds in there.
Yeah, I can do that.
Matched up and see what we're looking at. So there's one around 60 miles per hour when you're looking at the velocity. There's one around 50 miles per hour. This is definitely a little higher up since it's not directly around the radar site. You're still looking a few thousand feet off the ground. But now that we have the conditions more favorable to get some of those winds to the surface, those 50 to 60 mile per hour winds could easily be down at the ground. In the overnight, before we got the warmth to spill in, we had an inversion that was warm air aloft. It acted like a lid, and you couldn't get those strong winds to bust through it. Well, once we warmed up and erased that inversion, that's when all heck started to break loose, as we've seen the possibility for severe weather. Now, thankfully, this is not like an April, May situation to where if it was, we'd probably have many tornadoes touching down, and it would be bad news. As we look over into Hart County, that's the cell right now that is the most concern, and Matthew's going to pass along some information.
Yeah, so a producer just came in my ears, said that along US 31E, right along the Hart County line Hart County and LaRue County line, so I'm looking for, south of Magnolia, is that we had a report of a barn down in that area. Now, this was tornado warned at one point, and I can take you guys back there and so we can see the rotation that had passed through that area. But a barn down, some power lines down, very close, US 31E, south of Magnolia. Our rotation was a little bit further south of that. I'll point it out to you here. This is where the rotation was. This was about 30 minutes, 25 minutes ago. However, the report, I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in my ear, but the report was a little closer to Magnolia along the Hart County, LaRue County line. So that's where, up in here, we did have a report of a barn that has been knocked down. Whether that was straight line winds or a tornado, we don't know just yet. But some power lines as well as a barn taken down in that area. Let's go back to our tornado warned storm south of Munfordville, and now moving across 31E again. It's going to be moving over Hardeeville, but this is further south of where the first tornado warning moved through. So that first one moved through in the Jonesville, Hammondville, Linwood area. That first tornado warned storm about 25 minutes ago. Now you go further south, and it's east of Rowlett, so Rowlett's no longer underneath a threat of a tornado, or at least not Rowlett's proper, but you go further east, maybe you still have a Rowlett's address, east of 31W and along 31W, that big curve between Rowlett's and Horse Cave is where this rotation is. You go toward Hardeeville, north of LeGrand, that's where we see, and north of Uno, that's where this rotation is going to be moving. Jude, you got something in mind over there, my friend?
Yeah, I have great news to pass along.
Okay.
By no means does this guarantee that we don't have a tornado right now, but look at the difference between the current scan and then go back just 10 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
this is what
change.
we want to see.
And they just put out a new severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible instead of extending that tornado warning. You're on it, dude.
So go back a little bit more, please. I mean, that's bad. Bright blue, green, red, really wound up. Now take it out to the future and to where we are right now, because that leaves, crosses I-65, and we have now for the first time in this tornadic cell seen weakening. The cycle is happening now to where we cycle into the weaker side of this. Could very well come back. It's going to move into an area that has some juice that can provide that fuel. So don't just throw this in the trash can, but Hardeeville 31, this area right now will most likely get into some winds 60, 65 miles per hour at the worst part of it. But since this did have strong rotation and possible brief tornado touchdowns coming out of the Brownsville area, Mammoth Cave area, it could very well come back at any moment's time. So now we're looking towards Donensburg. Now we're getting into Greene County. We're going to go Greensburg south for the first time this morning. This is an area that has untapped air, plenty of fuel, and that's why we're going to watch that severe thunderstorm warning
That goes until 6:30 or 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern down there.
This could very well come back to being upgraded to a tornado warning. As Matthew mentioned, this has the tag tornado possible. And, well, I mean, duh, tornado possible, because that's at the heart and soul of this storm right now. I mean, you see it, again, you don't have to have a degree in meteorology to know something's spinning there. At least it's not as tightly wound up. It's not as compact. I mentioned this analogy earlier. It's sort of like a figure skater. If you ever watch figure skating, I mean, you know they get the most momentum when they're packed up like this, spinning around. When they're wound up like that, they don't have the same kind of forcing. It's the same thing with tornado. It's physics. As it branches out like that, you're not going to have the same kind of tornado potential that we're seeing right now. That doesn't mean it can't happen. So we're going to move this off to the east as we watch Hardeeville over towards Seymour. Now this is right along 31, which has been hit multiple times today by severe thunderstorms. 65 and 31 west, 31 east has just been raked with these strong to severe storms. And we're doing it one more time, but this will be the last of it as it comes on through. Rowletts, you're in the clear. We mentioned your name quite a few times this morning. Back towards Horse Cave, we are in the clear from any potential rotating winds. So we turn our attention to Wickerville, Monroe, over towards Donensburg, and eventually Greensburg down towards Thurlow, and we'll get into Adair County, which I know anyone in Adair County that's been watching this morning, every time you see a radar update, it gets a little closer. It gets a little closer. 7:30 to 8 o'clock, we should be able to move all of this jazz out of here. But thankfully right now, we do not have a tornado warning in Kentuckiana.
Yep, the latest, that one just expired at 7 o'clock, as you mentioned, and the one that was up in Nelson County has also been expired.
So there you have it.
For that portion of it.
That's a look at our most up-to-date radar scan with 2 severe thunderstorm warnings. The tornado warning has moved out of Kentuckiana that was over around Bradfordsville. We said that was just like a 3 to 4 minute thing that we had to watch. That's gone, so we're going to give the all clear there. Matthew and I will spend another minute or two analyzing the radar, checking out the velocity. We'll get Candace and Lindsay set here shortly to provide some news updates, because honestly, Matthew and I don't want to keep talking. I mean, the last thing we want to do is just keep going on and on and on about this if we don't have to.
Yeah.
So, Matthew, what are you finding out right now in that cell?
At this point, obviously, it has broadened out significantly, but we saw that. We saw that with the other tornado warned storm that was that now is warned again, but further east of our area. At this point, I think that there's been significant weakening here in both of these, but especially still east. Yeah, it has been. So
Where are we
the
going?
rotation was a lot higher, and it looks like you guys have turned off our mics here at the weather desk. There we go. Appreciate it. So the one that's further to the south, still severe thunderstorm warned with tornado possible tag on there. And Jude's looking into that one as it's moved over east of 31 east. And there's another small area of rotation south of Rowletts toward Horse Cave that we're looking at. They haven't mentioned that in the chat, but that'll be worth keeping an eye on as well. One thing I do want to point out to you, Jude, a month ago, the 6th of January in the morning, what were we waking up to? A ton of snow.
And then we hit 70 degrees. The snow melts. Everyone was like, yes, spring's here.
Spring is here.
It should not be spring in February.
Yep.
And when that occurs, more often than not, to get back to winter, you deal with this volatility.
And that's what nature does. Nature gets upset. It's kind of like your body. You got an illness inside, right? An invader is in there, and it goes all out of whack. And you get a fever, and you get these chills and these aches, and all that stuff is happening as your body's trying to fight it and get it back to homeostasis, back to normal. Well, that's what nature's doing right now. Something's out of whack. It's trying to fight it off, and it throws everything into this big combobulation of severe weather and storms, and you've got the snow as well. When you get these big-time weather events, that's nature trying to get back to its norm.
This guy dropping a homeostasis.
Yeah,
How
man.
about that?
I say big words so I can sound more photosynthesis.
That was not on my bingo card for the day, but well done, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So we're looking at Horse Cave, a little bit of mini rotation. This cell has truly lost a lot of its pack that it had. Let me give you, let's go to a looping radar just so we can show. I'm going to step over here, and I just want to show that we have now cleared the Western Kentucky and Bluegrass Parkway. The Cumberland Parkway right out of here is going to be the hot spot in the next hour. So we've seen some weakening. We will absolutely come back to this if we see that rotation intensify. Obviously, if a tornado warning comes back on, we will break in. But for now, there's no reason to continue this coverage since there is not a threat of tornadoes for the time being. So we're going to check in with Candace and Lindsay. Mike Marshall, we're going to check in with him in a second as he's going to have some traffic updates to highlight some of those problems down along I-65 and 31 as we've seen multiple areas of rotation, possible tornadoes move through the Hart County area. So that's what we have going on right now. Candace and Lindsay, let's get caught up with some news of the day.